Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Robert Trembath with Quasar Data Center. If you'll just give us a few minutes to let people sign on, we're still expecting 2 or 3 more people, and I'm trying to give a few more minutes for people to sign in. So you'll notice that you're all muted. We'll take questions at the end. I will be recording this session, but I will be not recording the Q&A session at the end for copywriting purposes. So just wanted to inform you of that so you'd be aware. If you have any questions, though, that you want me to answer during kind of a higher level that is related to the subject matter that I'm talking about at that time, please post it in the Q&A section, and I will try and get to it with a short answer at that point. Otherwise, we'll deal with it at the end of the webcast. Appreciate your time. Hold on a few more minutes for us, and we'll get started. All right, we are back. Want to take a minute to thank everyone for taking time out of their busy days. My name is Robert Trembath. Like I said, I am Vice President of Technology Services for Quasar Data Center. I do a lot of these webcasts for educational purposes in hopes that, hopefully you'll learn something that will be valuable to you and will want to talk to us further about how we might be able to help you afterwards. So we will not be doing much on the sales side. There may be at the very end to talk about a product that we sell to deal with some of these situations and protect your business, but it is 90% education, 10% solution. So with that, I will get on. We're going to be talking about specifically today about backup and disaster recovery, what the difference is between those. We'll get into business continuity, and we'll also be talking about basically how some of those catastrophic events, not just hurricanes, this is hurricane season, we do get these here in Houston, but also we're talking about things like ransomware. On the top of my head, I can tell you there is a company, an IT company called InSync, that just was hit by ransomware within the last week and a half, and they have actually been down the entire time. Very interesting enough. You get what you pay for. Sometimes the cheapest method isn't always the best, and they were one of the cheaper ones as far as cloud solution went, and they apparently did not have their backup system in order. They have their whole client base has been down for a week and a half, and hopefully you weren't one of the people on their system. So anyway, let's get talking about this and how it affects business and how we can protect ourselves against these kind of things. So let's talk about factors that affect technology and business. We also, obviously here in Houston, we have weather events, we have power events that sometimes those are coming hand in hand. Internet outages, which we are a city under construction constantly. Generations of construction people have lived and died off 45, so we know what that's like. Issues with physical buildings, and I'm going to say one thing real quick about this. If you are a tenant in a multi-tenant building, then you are basically at the mercy of the stupidest person in the building. And I will put this to you very clearly. We had an incident about 8 years ago where a client put a metal popcorn pop, that you normally use on a stovetop inside a microwave, and caused a microwave fire in the second story of a 5-story building, our client being on the 4th story, and ended up closing that building down for 6 months due to smoke damage. The city actually kicked them out of the building for 6 months till it was repaired and passed inspection. So I can tell you right now that if you're in a multi-tenant building, you need to be aware that the stupidest person in the building can affect your business. So be aware of that. End users, and I'm talking about all end users. We get busy. Everybody gets busy. They don't pay attention to things they click on, addresses they type in. They go places they're not supposed to and click on attachments they're not supposed to. Or maybe they see attachments and they know what it is. They delete it, but they don't tell anybody else. So somebody else in the building gets it, or in your office, and they infect the system. End users are one of the biggest points. It's what hackers depend on. They depend on end users not knowing what they're doing. They bank on it. And so far, they're winning. That's unfortunate, but it's true. Equipment failures. If you have, I can't tell you how many times I've walked into a business, a potential client, and seen a server in a closet with no ventilation, and you open it up and it's like a sauna in there. The heat destroys electronics, and basically, if you've ever been to a data center, they're like freezers. Ours is not, no exception. Um, basically, it computers are allergic to heat. The more heat, the less the life of the system. So, anything where you have bad operating environment, you are opening yourself up and increasing your chances of equipment failure. And I'm going to tell you kind of an interesting statistic real quick. I'm going to say all data, but if I remember correctly, and I'm quoting this, I'm remembering this from a research study, but it was 86% of all data loss inside a business was actually not from the server. It was from the desktops. It was from the desktop hard drives crashing and people not saving stuff to the server drives, which are backed up usually for most businesses. And they're able to restore those things, or they're on redundant systems if they have that. But 86% of that business is at the desktop or laptop level, because the drives are failing, equipment's lost or stolen, whatever it might be. That's where it's happening. And that's a really sad fact, because that's completely preventable. So just an interesting statistic, having fun with that word today, that you should know. How does being down affect your company? Well, I mean, there's obvious things that it does, but let's talk about what data loss over experience or being down for extended periods of time, actually how they affect a business. Statistics show that 92% of small business owners actually don't have a backup or a disaster recovery plan at all. In other words, they use things like Dropbox or OneDrive, and they think that's a backup. It's not. We'll talk about that a little bit later. They don't have a true backup, nor do they have a disaster recovery plan that involves an offsite source, something outside of their office. 79% of those small businesses have no automated backup system. In other words, they're just doing it when they feel like it. It could be a week, it could be a month in between. It's whenever they got time or they remember it. That's another really terrible thing. If someone was to steal or destroy your server or data without having a recent backup, statistics show that 86% of businesses that basically lose their client data are out of business within 6 months. That's a phenomenal statistic, not one I would want to be a part of. Can you afford not to protect your business and the livelihood for basically for yourself and your employees for less than most people pay for a car payment? I don't think so. And that's something you need to think about, because that's really what it is. And most people don't know that. So we'll talk about that towards the end. Now let's kind of define things. What is backup? Backup provides good basic protection. It does give you protection against ransomware, but only if it is a true backup system. What I mean by that is a backup system is not one that's connected to your system real time all the time, like Dropbox or OneDrive or Google Drive. Those are file sharing services. They are not backup systems. And if something happens to one of the computers that's sharing that data, it will affect everything that's connected to it, including the server at Microsoft, Google, or anywhere else. And I'll show you guys some stats on that later, some data we have that talk about those cloud systems were actually infected by ransomware over the last couple of years. True backup systems make a snapshot of a system and disconnect. A good example of that for those of you who have ever had a Macintosh, an iMac, or use OS X, and even in the Linux and Unix environment, there's something called time shift. What this does is it takes a snapshot. And so does most modern backup or cloud-based backup servers. They are connected to your system, but they do not give access to the actual backup system on a full-time basis, nor do they actually connect to it in real time. They take a snapshot of that data and then communicate it to the backup source. It's not a live system in that sense of the word. So that data that's snapshot and disconnected is actually not reachable when it's not being used. That's why that's very important. It is a disconnected snapshot, and it's what you use to recover from ransomware. That's why it's a good basic protection. That is a backup. And the best kind are automated and happen on at least a daily basis, if not more. Now, disaster recovery is a little bit different. Disaster recovery takes it a step further and takes this information and moves it to an offsite location, either cloud-based, or it could be somebody taking a physical copy of that data on a hard drive offsite on a regular basis, which I would probably recommend not doing because it relies on a human factor to do that. It's best to use something that's cloud-based, that's automated, that actually performs parity checks to make sure that the backup is good and validates it, which is what hardly anybody does. And believe it or not, most people don't find out their backup is actually good or not good until they actually need to use it. And by then, it's a little too late to find out that it's not good. Disaster recovery reduces your risk of data loss because if the only backup you have is right there in your building and it's flooded, it catches on fire, you've lost your computer and your backup. And so you're no better off than you were by not having a backup. Offsite backups are considered far more valuable to the business than just having a backup on site. We recommend both. In fact, in the IT industry, we usually keep 3 copies, and I won't go into that. That's the common practice. We provide 3 different methods of backup, usually because one fails at some point, and we know this through experience. It also reduces downtime by having that offsite backup. If your on-site backup does get compromised, things can be restored by that offsite backup. So you are reducing downtime if you have to use it. Now, business continuity is a little bit different. Business continuity is an availability of a system that is always online. This is something that we offer basically all 3 of these services, but I'm going to talk about this for a minute because this is something people do not think about. Business continuity is a system that actually is live and in real time at another location. I'll give you an instance for our data center. We use a physical hardware system that snapshots from Houston to Dallas, our data center in Dallas, and it's on an hourly basis. So the data is there. There are servers there on standby, physical hardware that is on standby. So if something should happen to Houston, in Dallas, those resources spin up and our entire customer environment is available in Dallas. And all we have to do is wait for those resources to spin up, which is usually minutes, and then the DNS to reroute from Houston to Dallas, which it does automatically, but it takes usually no more than an hour to do that. It depends on, the internet refreshing and getting that new updated information for the pointers. But it means that you are up and running all the time with no more than an hour's loss of time, period, in data. That is business continuity. Up, running all the time. And if you're a service industry here in Houston, especially that makes or benefits from business from disaster like hurricanes or tornadoes, windstorms, things like that, that's the kind of solution you have to have or need in the construction business, drywall, whatever it is. These things enable you to be up and running for your clients, and the same exists in the phone side sector as well. So if you ever have any questions about that, want to talk about it offline, we sell and service that. Be happy to talk to you about it. Cloud-based phone systems that are always up no matter what. They do not depend on your physical location or hard lines at all. And those things are extremely important to the service business. We use them ourselves in our industry, so very, very important. So let's kind of move on now. We talked about definitions. Now, I told you I'd get back to this about Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Drive. People using these to back up, and I will tell you that they will tell customers and present themselves as backup services. I cannot tell you in strong enough language that this is not the case. There are many, many people we've helped with over the last few years that have trusted these things to do that, and they've actually been just as infected by malware and ransomware as the actual end unit systems itself. And I'm going to give you a perfect example. Had a client this was an attorney firm actually. I will not mention their name. This was about 2 years ago when WannaCry first came out, and they basically had an attorney who worked on a Mac from home, thought he was safe from those things because he worked on a Mac. That is a huge misconception. There is just as much malware now for Macs as there is for Windows. But because he didn't have any coverage on that, the system had no idea that the PDF he was opening was actually infected or bad. So basically, he opened an infected PDF on his Mac, thought it was okay, saved it in his Dropbox, and that Dropbox was connected to his PC at work as well as his assistant's PC at work. So they both had access to that Dropbox. Well, the next morning they get in there and they open that file in the Dropbox. He infects his machine and his assistant's machine. And because the ransomware was meant to go look for, most people are not aware of this, will look for any connected drive that it has access to write to. So if you happen to have write access to a network drive, it will go in and encrypt that network drive, the ones that everybody else has access to, and will shut down the whole company. In this case, it encrypted 2 terabytes of data inside an hour and a half, and it struck at lunch. So these people, these hackers are aware. They know where you're located. They know when the best time is to attack, and they do it when it can affect the most damage. They did this at lunch at noon lunch on Friday, when they knew these attorneys, this particular attorney office, most of them were gone by noon. They saw that because they were in this they got in this person's computer for a few days before they actually implemented it. So they don't just get in and start doing things. They're not automated scripts. They actually look around. They're smart. They want to see what's going on. They want to actually find out when the best time is to hit, and they hit pretty hard. And there's some new things. I actually have a new series I started last week on ransomware, that how it's changing, how it's growing and becoming smarter, and how the hackers are taking a different approach. I encourage you to listen to that because it is informative and it's scary at the same time. All the more reason why you should be doing things that we're discussing here with backups and backup services. So these are not file sharing services. Do not think they are. Don't take it that way. The misunderstanding usually falls between the provider's perceived responsibility and the user's actual responsibility protection for their long-term retention of that data. The backup and recoverability that is provided, it's assumed by users, and they don't know that it's different. They just assume that that's what a backup is because they don't know any better. So please don't be fooled by this. The little quote you see here underneath in this figure, this is actual a quote from Microsoft. When it comes down to responsibility of data, their position is it's your data. You own it. You control it. If you lose it, it's your problem. That's unfortunately there. And we're a Microsoft partner. Believe me, we sell Office 365 all day long, but we also sell a dedicated Office 365 backup product that's cloud to cloud, specifically because of that. Now, let's talk about cloud-based file sharing services and how many were actually infected. So this is actually 2017 data, the 18 data. We just got some of it in. I haven't updated the slide yet, but believe it or not, it's worse. 76% of the infections, this was from managed service providers like ourselves from all over the country. 76% of the infections that occurred were on Dropbox, 32% on Office 365, 21% G Suite, and then you have some minor service like Salesforce, Box, and others that were affected. And as there become more players in this market, they become bigger targets. So this is something that is happening, and they are targeting them more than ever. I get at least 3 to 5 phishing emails a week trying to imitate basically that I've got messages stuck in my queue at Office 365, and obviously they're not, and they're coming from Japan and Korea and China and everywhere else. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about why cloud, and we're going to talk about solution now. Why does cloud infrastructure or cloud-based solutions protect you from these things a little bit better than having on-site servers and desktops and those kind of things? What's different is the hardware that they're on. I'll give you an instance. Our platform here at Quasar is based on NetApp hardware built with VMware and Microsoft server technology. So that infrastructure is built on redundant hard drives, all types, solid state, SAS, SATA, and with multiple redundancies and duplicate appliances in Dallas. So all the same appliances and hardware that are in Houston are redundant in Dallas, and they're separated by a security layer. So if something does happen here, it doesn't affect what's in Dallas. those things are not something a normal company can afford, especially a small business. But what if a company could provide you that that enterprise pie and only charge you for the little piece you use? That's what we're about. That's what Quasar is about. So our cloud-based infrastructure actually includes those redundancies. It includes that business continuity, the disaster recovery part. All that's built into the product, so you don't pay extra for it. What you pay for, you get all those features built into it from the desktop level down. Remember I mentioned in the beginning about desktop drives being the biggest source of commercial data failure? It's true. And this takes that out of the question, because not only are the servers being backed up and redundant to use, the entire environment, every single desktop is that way. So your entire IT environment is protected at that level, from the desktop level down to the server, and mirrored into Dallas. That's an enterprise solution. And basically, we include all the multi-layer barriers you need. Firewalls with what we call ATR, active threat remediation, managed services and servers and desktops that are updated and they're redundant. So basically, everything's up to, the patches are done automatically. You don't experience downtime as a result of that, both at the desktop and the server level. Email is filtered. And no matter how good your email filter is, even ours, stuff gets through. The hackers are very good at what they do. They know it, and we can only do so much with email filtering. We provide secure remote access, built-in hourly backups, and disaster recovery. So basically what I'm telling you is, if let's just say that Jane Doe clicks on an infected PDF that manages to get through all these things and infects her desktop. Well, the active threat remediation in our system identifies that as a threat. Our people know. It's isolated. We're able to call, if we don't catch it, or she catches it before we do, or notices that it's happening before one of the techs is assigned a ticket for it out of the automated system, then we can go in and basically shut that down and revert it to the last backup within that hour, and the desktop is restored within minutes, or the entire environment if it got further. But the point is you are only down minutes for recovery and right back up and able to work again. That is the advantage that cloud provides over doing it yourself at your office. All the solutions include unlimited support, 24/7, 365, with on-site technical support if you need it. And it's all done locally by local certified engineers. We don't outsource anything anywhere. And it's a fixed cost per user, per service environment. So basically, it's X amount of dollars per user that scales with your business. So you only pay for what you use. It is the best model that you can find for cost-effective IT that is bulletproof. You can completely eliminate, we even have an option to completely eliminate hardware and software upgrade costs. In other words, we can make it to where you never have to buy a computer again. You want to know about that? I'll tell you about it later offline. Just send me a comment through the question and answer, and I'll get with you on that online. But we have a new program that includes a thin client, where basically it's what you plug your monitor, keyboard, and mouse into, and it replaces your computer. So you will never have to go to Office Depot or Best Buy or order another Dell. All that's gone. We'll provide that for you as part of the service, as long as you have service with us. And if it fails, we'll give you another one. Now let's talk about the impact of cloud. And I just talked to you about how it's better, how it protects your business, but let me tell you about what it does for you economically and as far as productivity, because all these things affect your ability to make money as a business and to service people. The economics, you pay for what you use, you have lower and predictable costs. All your costs for IT ship from CapEx to OpEx. That means no more capital expenses, no more having to pay for upgrades or new hardware, new software. All that stuff ships to operational costs and is tax deductible. And you have an accelerated speed to value for your investment. So basically, you're going to put out less money and have a controllable number to bank on as you grow. You also have reduced management. There's no patching, no maintenance on your side. We can deploy faster. If you had an employee and you call us, we'll have a new desktop for that person in a matter of hours. And you don't have to go buy any more hardware for it or anything. It's just instantly available, and they're able to work off it with everything they need. Microsoft Office, email, the whole bit. Office 365, whatever you want. It's robust. It's multi-layered security from the infrastructure up. So basically, there's nearly 4 layers of security that protect you from any kind of issues. Reliability and fault tolerance. To give you an idea, our data center is a hardened data center. We are in the Benz building in downtown Houston. We are in a 275 mile an hour storm rated exterior windows with steel shutters on the inside. We sit on 2 independent high priority power grids that are, one is on the same as the penal system, and the other one's on the same as the Federal Gold Reserve. So, and we have yet to be down ever. We also have a triple mix of internet off a 25 gig pipe that is a mix of, it's triple redundant. So it is Comcast, NTT, and Cogent. So unless all 3 of those pipes, those individual nets go down, we will not be down. We also have redundant cooling, redundant power, redundant hardware. Everything's redundant. So basically, if any system, we have diesel generators on the roof, we own and operate this data center ourselves. It is not, we don't lease it from somebody. We don't lease space from another provider. We own and operate it as a business. So kind of think of it as we're an IT solutions company that actually owns our own data center. This gives you increased productivity. You guys have the latest software for your users. There's no more using Office that's 5 years old or 10 years old. You have internet collaboration, so you share calendars, contacts, all the things that come with Office 365, Teams, those kind of things. You can access it anywhere, anytime, on any device, 24/7. I actually work off an iPad Pro. I don't use a laptop anymore, haven't for more than a year. And we have instant provisioning. So basically, as you need things, you grow, we can either take away or add. So if you're in a tax business that has a high time where you need to have double the amount of employees for a few months out of the year, we can add those resources and turn them on and off as needed, and you only pay for them when they're on. Can't think of a better business model as a former business owner that I would want to be on. Now, just a little definition about what cloud is, and we're pretty much done at this point. Cloud means that everything is in this green cloud here, okay? The servers, your desktops, everything of value. So if I'm working from a laptop or an iPad and that gets stolen, I've lost absolutely nothing, and we can actually wipe access to it remotely. So we can prevent them from getting into any of your email, the corporate desktop. Even if it's saved in there, we can wipe that configuration from the system remotely with mobile device management. So these devices on the outside are just access devices to access your desktop. It looks like your normal work desktop. It operates like your normal work desktop. It's just you're remotely accessing it. So the speed in which it works, the resources are enterprise level resources. Has nothing to do with what's sitting on your desk. So it's always going to be fast. It's always going to be snappy, and it's always going to be backed up. So the business continuity I talked about, this is kind of a redundant slide, so I'm not going to go over it again. I didn't mean to have this in here, so I'll pull it from the next one. But basically what it means is that everything in this server is mirrored to this server, and we just turn this server on if this one fails. That's all that means. And that business continuity means that no matter what, server 1 or server 2 is going to be up for you at all times, because server 2 is located in a completely different physical location. So no matter if server 1 is 10 feet underwater, which it never would be, but if it was, it wouldn't affect your business's ability to operate. I'm going to leave off with, I just want to thank you for your time and attention. I want to leave off with who we are. I covered this just a few minutes ago. These are just the points of what I talked about, that we own and operate our own data centers. We develop cloud solutions specifically for the small business market. We realized that these are things that small businesses needed. It was things like Azure and Amazon Web Services, the knowledge capital needed and the money needed to be able to build such a system for small businesses was just not a viable solution. And so we took it upon ourselves to build using the best technologies in the business: NetApp, WatchGuard, VMware, Microsoft and basically built these into a solution that you could just buy what you need as you need it and pay for what you use. I already mentioned we staff our own certified people. And if you ever have any questions about what we do, you obviously have my information through LinkedIn, however it is I contacted you. I will have this available as a recording. And I really appreciate your time. I hope the information we presented today was useful to you. And have a great day. I'll be cutting off the recording now, so you will be able to ask questions.